Hello everyone, Niev here, and this is another episode of the Mildred Payne Secret Pocket Oracle deep dive, and this is episode 4. In my last video, I said that this video I would be doing combining with other decks, but I actually think I'm going to save that for episode 5, which should hopefully be for now the last one. But for this one, I think I just want to do spreads. I just want to do different spreads. So this is kind of going to be a bit of a the same sort of thing that I'm doing with my Tableau style series, where I'm doing Tableau style reading, but with different decks and things like that. So that is what I primarily use with the Mildred Payne. Now I could do, different spread positions or whatever. I could do something, oops, I have this upside down. I could do off the grid, like different things, whatever. I could even do stuff like that. But I don't. And other people might do treat the Mildred Payne more like it's a tarot and do spreads like that. I personally like to use this deck straight up like a tableau. So okay, had to pause this because there's annoying people outside revving engines and doing motorcycle stuff or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so starting this off, it's simple 3-card spread, of course. I don't think there's much I could really go into this. So simple 3-card spread. We could do past, present, future. We can, the 3 cards tableaus are closer to tarot, I think, than other types of tableau layouts. But the 3-card, I feel like, is the most closely associated to what we would think of as a tarot spread, because even though it's read like a sentence, I would say boot, factory, and chalice. I might read this as, because I'm thinking of boot and factory as very much, factory I think of as a workplace. It could be a workplace. It could be an institution, but combined with boot here, it is not boot, boot. Combined with boot here, it's more of a working hard, as particularly at something official, a job, your place of work, and then like offering that work, because I see chalice as an offering. Now, like perhaps it could mean you're going out for drinks after work. Yeah, that you could see that. So, like, you could do a beginning, middle, and end sort of thing, where we're preparing for hard work, and then going out with and socializing with friends, something like that. I mean, that's absolutely a way you can read it. There's lots of different ways you could read a 3-card line. Of course, it's we're without any context here, so yeah. But anyway, so that's a 3-card. I mean, and then then there's of course a 5-card line like this, which I like to read this one as this. When I do a 5-card line, I lay it out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I usually start from the center. So the center is the focus. So it is something official. Factory is official. And then the cards next to it are what's affecting it the most. So boot and chalice would be affecting this factory the most. And the farther off cards, broom and moon, are what's still in frame, still having to do with this. It's still affecting this, but it's kind of further out. And I do read these as more past and these as more future. So this is recent past, recent future, far future. That's kind of how I read a 5-card line, and an extended line then adds a card on top and a card on bottom. That is an extended line of 5 here. I see this layout from, I forget the YouTuber's channel. I think it's just called Lenormand Reader. She does a lot of spreads like this, where she does extended lines like this. And this is basically an extended line of 5. So there we go. And this, the center line here would be more the person. It's all, I mean, we did end up getting the person. Maybe I'll put a different card here so it's maybe showing something different. But, the current affecting the current situation, and what it's based on. Because here up at top, and this is how I read it, by the way, other people will have different ways of reading it. I read the cards on top as things that are affecting the cards below it, and the cards below as things that you have more control over. So the factory has more control over this card, and the stump is, what's affecting this factory. So stump on the top would say that, and this is something that's more out of your control. This is something more in your control. The stump is indicating that this is not going anywhere. This is staying put. Tooth down here at the bottom. I mean, I wouldn't consider this to be a super great omen, just because tooth I have often associated with losing something that was considered permanent. I mean, here we have something that's considered permanent, and but we're in charge of that. We have more control over that. So maybe I would read this more as the person, the querent, has more control over this, It seems like it's something that's stuck in place. Maybe the querent feels stuck at work, that they can't go anywhere, but they have the ability to end it, and lose that particular thing that we thought was a stump, permanent, semi-permanent, So that's a 7 card, or a line, an extended line of 5. You could, of course, do a 7 card like that, but I don't like to get much. I don't like to go longer than 5 cards for a line. I kind of like to stick to a line that's just 5 cards, unless it's in a larger tableau type reading. However, with this deck, I don't tend to do larger than a 5 line. And we'll get to that in a moment. So after the lines, we now have the boxes. So I'm going to start off with a 9 card, because that is the most typical with Lenormand and other types of tableau style reading. The basic layout tends to be a 9 card box. And that works just great with this Mildred Payne Secret Pocket Oracle. There we go. So here's a box, a portrait, a 9 card box, however you want to call it. I have seen other terms used for this 9 card layout. Now I laid out, as you saw from this card, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's how excuse me, I hiccuped. That's how I laid out. Other people do different layouts. Some people like to start in the middle, and then they'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. Or they'll do start in the middle, and then they'll put in the corners, and then start adding in the diamond. It's just personal preference. And then there's other ways you could do it as well. One of the books I had started in the center, and then went, I think it started here. I can't remember. It started either here or here, and it did a clockwise circle around. And that was the first time I'd ever seen that layout. But however you lay out the cards, just, try to be consistent. And in general, I lay this out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's my preference. I do have some exceptions, but that's my preference there. Now, to actually do a sample reading, I actually just did a sample, I did a reading with a 9 card box not long before I started this video. So let me lay out, and I pulled out these cards to the side here to lay out what my spread was. These are a little bit out of order. So I asked my deck, so actually let's do a little bit of background. I asked my deck, and I don't remember the exact wording here, but I asked my deck, what do we need to do to ensure that we get the skunk smell out of our dog? So, funny thing, our dog got skunked a few days ago. It's been, I don't know, I want to say 4 days ago. It's something like that. It's been about 4 days. And yeah, so our dog got skunked. This is the first time that's ever happened to us. We had no idea what to do, except, we'd always heard the old wives' tale, I guess, that, you bathe in tomato juice or vinegar, etc. And so we immediately, and by the way, this was 11:30 at night. We had just come upstairs. We were chatting in the kitchen, having a late night snack before we head to bed. We had just finished our meal, our little snack at 11:20 or so, and then the dog came in from her dog door. And we just kind of ignored her and kept talking. And then it was about 5 to 10 minutes after she had come in. We were still, about to go into our room. And it was just, we're smelling something that was just off and weird. And, we very quickly figured out the smell was emanating from the dog. And we figured out she had just been skunked. And we were like, oh, shit. So, it's 11:30 at night. We have no idea what to do other than tomato juice or tomatoes, and we had a few cans of crushed tomatoes. We grabbed one and we took her up to our bedroom, and she's a big dog. She's like 70 pounds. So we got her in the tub and she's shedding like crazy. And we didn't know this at the time, but you're not supposed to get her wet right away because it spreads the oils all over her body, which we didn't know at the time. We know now. This was very much sort of situation. And she did smell a little bit better after her tomato bath. But the thing is, the tomato baths, they work temporarily. They aren't a good way to clean a dog with skunk. It just what we had read about it was that it just masks the smell, right? And which is true. But it was at this point it was like 12:30, almost 1, and we were tired. The dog's been clean. We gave her a tomato bath, and then we had some body wash because that's all we had at the time. We didn't know what else to do, and we just kind of washed her back, and we tried to stay away from her face, except that's the area where she was sprayed, So, anyway, we did the best we could, cleaned her that night, went to sleep, and the next morning, first thing in the morning, my husband goes out to check to make sure there's no, that our dog didn't win a fight, if you know what I mean, and there's no carcass in our backyard, and there was not. So pretty sure we know how and where the skunk got in our backyard, but whatever. And then we took the dog out and we learned a bit more on what we were supposed to do, and my husband went and picked up some version of skunk off or whatever, and came home. Anyway, we did 2 washes of her with a special wash, and she did smell better. She smelled 100 times better. We had, all the windows in the house open to air out the house. The house was smelling better. She was smelling better. All good, and we did not allow her on the furniture for 2 days, and I felt horrible about that because we like our dog on our furniture, that's just how we are. Anyway, but the last, yesterday, she was starting to smell worse. And because we were starting to be all right, she smells a lot better now. Maybe we can start letting her on the furniture. And then she started smelling worse. And we thought maybe she'd gone out in the backyard and rolled over the area where the skunk was. I don't know. But we can't find anything to confirm that. But anyway, she's smelling worse, and that's her right now coming in the dog door. And so we did the other suggestion, which was a mixture of water, vinegar, and dish soap. And I gave her, first I gave her 2 more of the skunk off baths this morning. Then later on, I gave her a bath with the vinegar and the dish soap. I gave her 2 of those, 2 in a row. And then I did another bath of her with the skunk off. And she does smell way, way better. But it's fingers crossed. But before I did all that, we were really thinking we needed to perhaps get her professionally cleaned, maybe. I don't know. Because we're just having issues. Anyway, so back to my cards. I asked my deck, what do we need to do to ensure that our dog gets a skunk smell out of her. So this was what I pulled. So the first three cards make a lot of sense. To me, this looks like the skunk to me. Now, to be clear, I don't have any beef with the skunk. The dog was being the dog. The skunk was being a dog. Or skunk was being a skunk. So, I actually feel bad for the skunk because obviously the skunk was scared. So, but these three cards definitely represent the skunk. So that is absolutely something that's outside of our control. This is a reality. And this is what's in our control. Here's our answer to the question. Our answer is the question. So we see growth here. The crow here is, because we have two animal cards here. And as you saw, I said that this is representing the skunk. And it is representing the skunk. This is a wild animal with a stink bomb. A wild animal with a stink bomb that was outside of our control. It was just something that happened. Here, now this is interesting. I am reading this as a professional because we have hat. Hat is an occupation. Occupation with an animal. This is a vet or a pest control or any sort of professional having to do with animals. So this is a profession with animals, and then we have the person here that's the professional. It could also represent my husband. This could be the hat we're placing on ourselves to be this person for our dog and to there we go. Or it could absolutely represent a professional in this regard. And then what we see with the hidden influences here, the poison that affected our dog, because the crow here is representing our dog here. Now there's no dog card in this deck, and there's also no skunk card, but there's no dog card, but that's okay. The different animal cards can represent your animal. It depends. And I think the crow here representing our dog makes a lot of sense. Even if there was a dog card in here, I would still read this crow card as representing my dog or animals in general. So that makes sense. So we have, this has affected the dog, and we're just kind of masking the right here. That's what I'm seeing here. We're just we're putting something over top. That what's there is it's still there. We're just kind of hiding it a little bit. So perhaps we do need something more aggressive. And that's what we're seeing here. But we are blocked from it because we don't want to have to go to do something more aggressive. We want to nip this in the bud. So how I read this, and this also was before I did more of the deep clean stuff. How I read this was that we need to take a more aggressive approach. The reality is that we may possibly have to go to a professional, but we could take on this role ourselves. So that's basically how I'm reading this, and also it's a lot of hard work. That's kind of what we're seeing here with the shuffle. But we feel kind of blocked from wanting to go a more aggressive route. But yeah, so that was a very long story here, and explaining the little spread that I did today with this deck, a little 9-card spread. So speaking of extended tableaus, I mentioned the extended line of 5. There's also an extension of the 9-card box, and one of the most common extensions of this, you could go off on this. Sorry about for the spider, but you could go off on that and do an extended there. I don't usually do that, but I could mess around with that a bit. But an extended 9-card box actually goes a full thing around. So I'm going to place this all the way around. Okay, we're a little bit wonky here, but yeah, and this is also why I had to zoom out. So we now have an actual larger tableau here. Now, I would call this an extended 9-card box, and that's because of the way that I laid it out. I would call it a 25 card tableau if I started from here. So that's the difference, is the way I'm laying it out. If I started from here with Spider and laid them all the way out like that, then I would call it an actual tableau, a 25 card tableau. But because I laid out the 9-card box first and then started to do lay out the cards this way, and you can lay it out however you want, but I do it in a clockwise circle around it to do the extended. Laying it out like that, it is now an extended box of 9, an extended 9-card box. Sorry. Yeah. So, and it is a 25 card tableau. So, what's nice about it, this layout, it's the center is the focus. If it was an extended box, the center really is the focus. And then you go to the cards outside of that. You're really focused in the center. Like this Pentacle card is the center of the reading, and the most important cards are right here. And these are less important cards around the edges. They're just adding a little bit more context. And when you do it like this, you can now, because with just the 9-card box, you can't knight the center card, but you now can knight the center card with the extension, and then from that you can start doing a 25 card tableau where we have the center. We have a nice center cross here. So that represents the person, that represents the reality, and these boxes are all larger versions of that original 9-card box. So, and we have a nice diagonal this way, a secondary diagonal that way, and that's the 25 card tableau there. So reducing it down, we were just an extension, reducing down the 9-card box. I take out the middle row here. And now we have a 6-card box. And this has become one of my most common layouts. Less so with this deck. I do think I prefer this with some larger deck. Well, if I use the larger Mildred Payne Secret Pocket Oracle, this is a larger card size. If I open, thank you. If I use this one, you see the size difference here. Yeah, this is the mini, which I largely prefer, but I do also like the deluxe size when the situation calls for it. But I would be more inclined to use a 6-card with this size deck versus the small one, just because the mini is quite mini. But and so the 6-card can feel kind of small, but I tend to like the 6-card layout because it's basically the 9-card box without the middle row. That's how I read it. So we do still have the beginning, middle, and end. We have the answer to the question, which is the primary knighting. Instead of a diagonal, it's the primary knight. And then the secondary knight is the hidden influences. And then we have the top row is things affecting, and or the intangible, and the bottom row is the tangible, or the things that you have more control over, the foundation. And then what's nice about this little layout, I like the triangles that it creates. So I have an as above triangle. This triangle points upward. And we have a so below triangle. This points downward. Now, it depends on what purpose I'm reading for this layout, using the as above and so below. But it can represent, the as above can also be do this. and the so below is don't do that. That can be a way to utilize that. In spiritual readings, I read this as the message from the divine, the as above, the message from the divine being, and then the so below and how to bring it down to earth. So that's kind of how different ways you can read that. Again, just make your intentions known from the beginning on how you want to read that. But I do really like this 6-card layout, and I will be discussing this one in more detail in the next video when I start combining decks with the Mildred Payne, because this is probably the spread I use most often when I'm combining it with other decks. And that's probably why it feels so small right now to me, because I'm using it on its own. I'm using a little 6-card reading on its own, and if I do this spread, I often do it with other decks as well. So yeah. So as far as grand tableaus go, obviously this is a deck of 88 cards, so it's not a Lenormand. Even though there are several cards within this deck that I've equated to Lenormand cards, they're not quite a one-to-one comparison, but they're close. But it's not a Lenormand deck. So I really do not do a 36-card grand tableau with this deck, because this is a deck of 88 cards. But I would do that for one situation, and that is using the house situation. So grabbing a Lenormand of 36 cards and laying out the 36 cards, however I do that, whether that be in order from Rider all the way down to Cross, or it's a jumble of, it's a shuffled a grand tableau, and then laying this cards from here on top. That's the only exception to that, but typically, I don't do a 36-card grand tableau with this deck, because even though I use it like a Lenormand, it's not a Lenormand, So, anyway, so what I do though, I do a sort of a small grand tableau, or a small tableau, or a petite tableau. Yeah, so what I do is it's an 18-card tableau, and so I'll shuffle the deck and then lay out 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and do 3 rows of that. 6, 7, and 15. All right, so now we have 15, and I could keep it as this and read this as its own tableau. But I like to make this like a mini version of a grand tableau, so I put 3 cards down here, and I will have to zoom out. So here is the bottom cards here. Okay, good enough for zooming out there. So now we basically have a grand tableau. It's just a very small condensed version of it. And I like this because we have a fate line right here. This is the answer line. It's a fate line here. We have a center card. I do read this as almost its own thing. This is almost an extension is how I read that. But we do still have a 3x4 box here, but we also have a 3x3 right here in this center. So this to me is the center card. This is the heart of the matter, the center card. You can read the 9-card box, and I do tend to read this as the cross right here, but it's extended down to the fetus down here. It's the umbilical cord. But anyway, yeah, so I will read the cross like that. It's a 4x5 card cross, or 5x4, however you look at it there. For diagonals, there's not really a diagonal possible with this. You might use like right here and right here. That could be a diagonals. I mean, I don't usually use the diagonals with this spread, but you could. I mean, right here, you could do that. But yeah, so this is basically just a mini version of that, of the 36 card grand tableau. This is an 18 card petite tableau. So, or mini tableau, however you want to call it. But yeah, so that is basically the primary tableau that I use if I'm going to do a grand version or a larger tableau. It's usually this 18 card. It might be that 25 card, but like I said, I use that more of an extended box, a 9 card box. But yeah. So one of the things I use Lenormand for is to find lost objects. And in a Lenormand deck, I use the key to always represent the lost object I'm finding. It doesn't matter if there's another card in the deck that perhaps fits that better, you know, or is that exact item in the deck. It doesn't matter. I use the key card to represent whatever lost object I'm trying to find. And there is a key card in this, but, you know, I'm obviously not laying out all 88 cards. With a Lost Objects Lenormand, I would probably lay out a grand tableau and find where the key is and then read the cards around it. And you could go smaller with that too. And that's what we're going to have to do with this. And I'm going to show a technique of basically using a target card. And in this deck, it's going to be the key because it's going to be the lost object, whatever it is. And I'm not setting an object to this. It's just a mythical lost object we're trying to find here. So I would shuffle this and then putting in the intention that I'm searching for the key card and it represents my missing object. And I am going to then pull the 4 cards after it and the 4 cards before it in the deck. So we're setting the deck, basically. And that is also what we're going to do for the next technique, too. This is a deck setting type of a reading. So I'm setting the deck here. And I just turn that upside down. All right. One more shuffle. All right. So I've set this deck. I'm going to turn it this way. Oh my gosh, we found the key. Okay, let's pretend the key was not on the bottom here. Well, if that's the case, I mean, I would say that it's like right by us, whatever it is, and the deck just knew I was talking about itself. So it was like, here I am, I'm right here. You haven't missed, you know, haven't gone anywhere. All right. So if it's right there, I would interpret that as it's literally right near me. It's like, you know, if it's a snake, it would have bit me, you know, that sort of thing. But let's pretend this was further in. I'm going to just put a random spot right there. So you go searching for the key, you know, and we saw that I would put it basically over, where did I, see, I already lost it. Where did I put the key? Key. Here it is, key. All right, place it right there in the center. Now I'm grabbing the 4 cards after it, like that, and the 4 cards before it. There we go. All right. And then from there, you can now do like, where is my lost object? And then, you know, from that, you can start reading these very, you know, literally. Yeah. So, I mean, oof. So, I mean, the key was affected by the fact that there was a lot of chaos happening that did settle down and was now still, but there was chaos that happened, and that's where the object got lost. And in that chaos, perhaps perhaps this could represent the dog, you know, my dog, or it could represent a different animal, I also interpret the cat as representing sort of something being isolated or on its own because of the independence of a cat. I think of it as being on its own. So that could be where it's not really near anything, you know, or you know, I could read this as the dog's leash. It's with the dog's leash, etc., like that. And then you know, there's other ways I can start interpreting this. And in the chaos, I kind of half-heartedly placed the object somewhere, and the reality is that it's the hopping. I'm really looking at the hopping of the frog, and a sort of like leaping to conclusions. I sort of have a preconceived idea of where this is at, and and that's kind of the reality of the situation right now. Is I'm tied to this idea too. I'm tied to this idea of where it might be. But I see, like, where could it be? I could say this feels a little bit like the kitchen to me. And because of like how I'm getting that, I'm thinking the stove. It's by itself by the stove, perhaps near the dog's water. That's and it's probably right there. Yeah. So I mean, this is just a fake object. I don't know what I'm missing, but so the way I'm reading this was very convoluted. But it's a smaller version of the Lost Objects Grand Tableau, and like it's a little bit but because there's 88 cards in this deck, you kind of have to adjust some of these tableaus, because for a Lenormand Lost Object spread, I would lay out all 36 cards, and then I would read from there. But I can't do that with this. I did think it was funny that the key was right there at the when I turned it over. It's right there. I'm right here. So the last thing I have written down here next to me on different spreads I can use with this is something I haven't tried. So, actually, I'll do that next. There was one more that I forgot to do. So speaking of the setting the deck, so a different way of setting the deck. Well, you're setting the deck the same way, but this was something that I talked about in a different video, in one of my Tableau style videos. And this is a follow-up question spread. So let's say I have a client, or someone who's asked, me to pull cards for them. They have a situation going on. I don't know what the pretend situation is. Actually, I'm not even going to think of one, because I'm not going to read these. But so there's a situation going on. The querent asks me what this for advice on it. Okay, so we're going to do a 9-card box, but we've set this deck. So I'm shuffling it one more time, and this deck is now set. This deck is set. All right, we've asked the question, right? So I intuitively split the deck where it feels right. I'm going to say right here. And then you saw that I put that all the way to the back. So now this is the top of the deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, they're like twisting around. 7, 8, 9. So I'll reorder this. Okay, so here is the answer to their question, and we can read into this as much as we want, just see the answer to the question. We see some knighting. We see the beginning, middle, and end. What's out of our control, what's in our control, the reality of the situation, etc. And then perhaps do some knighting. Okay, we've done some in-depth answering of that question. Now we have a follow-up question. I have not touched this deck yet. I haven't touched this deck, so I'm keeping it set. This deck is set for this question. So in using this as the main reference point, we're now asking a follow-up question. All right, so this was the main question. Now, follow-up question, grabbing the whole deck, and intuitively, so I'm asking the follow-up question, and I'm intuitively splitting right here. I went near the end there. And now I lay out another box. Okay, so here is the answer to question number 2. It's, I've purposely put a big gap between question 1 and question 2. These are still connected, so I still want the other box next to this, but I want a gap in between so that I know this is question 2, right? And then, of course, one last final follow-up question. Like, no more, like, this is kind of a rule I make for myself, because you could keep going until you exhaust the deck, but I think that's a bad idea. So I've kind of made it my own personal rule that this is the main question. We can have up to 2 follow-up questions. So here's follow-up question number 1, and then follow-up question number 2. Let's go here. All right. Now follow-up question number 2. Okay, so it is a little bit off there, but this is what this looks like now. So we have 3 separate readings, but they are connected. So, and if I still wanted to do further questions from that, I would just stick with what I have here. And now I would combine this as one full reading. If there was even more questions, then, well, if there's even more questions, then, I don't think a simple Oracle reading is going to solve this. But yeah, so then we have a bigger tableau here. This is like a 9x3 tableau, basically. Yeah, which is quite unusual. But, and I've never had to do this before. So, but yeah, so this is, but I do like the main question with 2 follow-up questions at the 9 card boxes. And drawing from, this is the context. The set deck is the context. And then, having 3 questions based on this context. So there we go. So the last thing I wanted to do with this was the one that I have not done this before, but I wanted to experiment with it, and that's using piles to pick from. Now we could pick some select cards and have pile for this, pile for that, pile for that, and using cards that specifically reference that. Like, for example, pulling out all of the people cards and having a pile of people cards. Pulling out all the cards that I think are related to this concept or this thing would go in the second pile, and something like that. That's very possible. You could do something like that, or you could just you can shuffle and then pick 3 piles, split this into 3. We got pile 1, intuitively picking here, pile 2, and pile 3. So we got 3 piles. I kind of slammed that, sorry. And then what can we do from that? So we can read like this. We can do a nice 3-card reading. I would read this as a little bit religious, maybe, but and extending to the heavens, depending on what the context was. But you could do something like that. Absolutely. What else could you do with the 3 piles? Let's see. Well, you could do a pendulum like that, and then pulling out which deck to read from. So let's say it landed here on that first one. So this is the deck that I read from, and these are irrelevant to the reading, and I could go from that and then split here. That could be one way, and then start doing like a little, well, I'll put a little 6 card right here. Whoops, I'm dropping cards, but you know what I'm doing here. There we go. So there's, a possibility. Like there's another way you could read this using piles. Again, I have not play tested this, so I literally just came up with this like right before I clicked record. I was like, yeah, I could do like a pile sort of system and figure something out with that. But yeah, I feel like this is something I could play around with, and you could use a pendulum and figure out what pile to use. You could do something else similar to that, but anyway, so that was a little bit of a play. Okay, so I think that's it for this episode. As I said, next episode, I am going to try to be doing some combining with other decks and figuring out something from that. And I do think the next video will be the last video for now. Unless in the future I come up with something that like, oh, I want to do this with the Mildred Paynes and do another add-on video, then I might do that. But as of right now, I think I'm going to end it at 5 episodes for the Mildred Payne. So, all right, I will see you next time for, going over some pairings with this. Bye.